There's something strange that I found about academia and venting or ranting. So, when you're in teams in industry, you kind of have many people to solve problems. So you can rely on other people to potentially help you. In academia, you're kind of by yourself with the problem that you are facing specifically. And I'm sure you can understand it when you're really deep into a project or something, you have the most context of it. So it's really easy for you. Okay, really easy. You solve the problem better than most other people just because you've got a lot of information on it. That's not to say other people can help you with ideas, and sometimes just seeing another perspective is great. I get you. But when you have to explain something very niche and complicated to other people, it takes a really long time to get them up to speed to the same context that you have, and then to brainstorm about it. So it's quite frustrating. And I'm not talking about anger, I'm talking about frustration today and venting and ranting about it. And it just seems to make me feel better. And I feel like I've worked in industry for like 7 years, and I feel like I never ranted and vented as much about the work that I'm doing as I do now in academia. And the thing is, after I rant or vent, I feel a little bit like, oh, Bianca, shut up, in my own head to the people that I'm ranting and venting to. But like, I do feel better, and it seems like a common trend here in the academic world. Blow off steam. Get it off your chest. What's on your mind? Let it out. We've built an entire vocabulary around the idea that anger is like this pressure that's building up inside of you. And venting kind of just releases it. Same way as those like noisy, I always think they're British kettles, but you know how they release the steam and make a noise? And that idea, it actually has a name. Psychologists call it catharsis theory. And there's the idea that we don't think about the mechanism that makes us feel better. And I'm not saying that nobody thinks about it, but humans in general, we're just like, oh, this does this and it makes me feel better. And we move on. We don't really think about why it makes us feel better. Because every time you use it, you're upset or frustrated. My emotion here is more frustrated. I vent about it and then I feel better. And I'm like, okay, cool, sweet. I don't really think about what I'm actually doing in venting. Like, what is venting? And maybe this is so niche and nobody cares about it because it actually works. Fine. I was curious. But what I found out, and I'll explain a little bit later, that there's a difference between feeling better afterwards and then feeling less angry or less frustrated. There's a difference between those two things. So I wanted to find out a little bit more because I'm curious as to why this makes me feel a little bit better. But what I found was a little bit contradictory. In 2024, there were two researchers from Ohio State in America. They gathered about 150 studies on anger. And these studies covered like about 10,000 people. And then they split the management activities of these people with their anger problems. And it was into two things. The first, things to calm down the body. So like slow breathing, meditation, yoga, that kind of stuff. And then the group to handle it to like kind of rev up that anger. So like going for a jog, punching a punching bag, or venting. And what they found is the calming down activities worked. And when I say worked, it was actually quite consistent to everyone in the calming group. They felt better afterwards. And their body just kind of thing. They felt less angry. However, our revving up group, the group that included venting about it or ranting about it, these, I've said it before, arousal raising activities, the anger didn't subside. They were just as angry before and after these activities. Now, that's the overarching picture on anger kind of thing. But if we zoom in a little bit to a study that was actually done before this study, and one of the researchers in that anger study did this study, but specifically on venting, and specifically venting about the person that made you upset in the first place. And kind of how the experiment went is that people were provoked and then they were given a punching bag and told to think about the person that upset them. And kind of like, made me so angry, punch, whatever. And what they found after this activity is that the people were actually more angry. with the person that they started out, the initial provocation, the provoking them. And then there was another group where they said, you can't punch, you can't do anything, just sit and kind of think about it, denoted a calmer group. And the thing is, they came out less angry with the person that provoked them. So, bringing kind of these studies together, I know they sound a bit arbitrary here, but I'm trying to look at when I go for coffee and I vent about something, I feel like I feel better. However, I don't actually, my body doesn't actually feel better. It's still riled up. It's still a little bit angry. Like the physiological things are still there. And I thought that the venting would like kind of subside the anger and be like, you can't be ridiculous. Like nobody's to blame here. It's kind of just you. This is how it is. Get over it, girl. I thought that the venting, at least getting it out, because you usually are very solo-ish researchers, so venting and ranting to people is it just feels nice. But that nice feeling, I thought, came from the venting. But it doesn't seem to, according to the studies, that doesn't help it. I actually become more angry about when I vent about it. So, what is it? So, a good majority of the time, after I've had a good vent session where I'm sitting down over a coffee or a glass of wine, kind of just, I want to say bitching, but it's very much ranting or venting about the situation or people. But mostly right now, when I'm talking about the PhD, it's the situation, because things should work and they're not working and you don't have answers because it's novel and all that stuff. And it feels nice having someone else hear what I'm saying, and it almost feels validating, because I think being heard is a real human need, and we feel good when people can resonate with our experience. We feel less isolated or less alone. But that feeling of being heard and being less angry, they're very different things. So when I'm venting with someone, I'm telling them the story that made me frustrated. And every time I retell that story, technically my body is still in that frustrated state because I'm reliving that experience of the frustration. So you can say in physiological terms, your heart rate is up, adrenaline is there. You still don't actually have answers to what made you frustrated. Or for me, that's usually my frustration in here. Is I don't have the answer to it, and I'm still just as frustrated. So when I think about it again and relay it, I go back to the fact that I don't have answers, and it's frustrating. And if we go back to our kettle analogy, the steam isn't leaving. It's still inside me, boiling up. So every time I retell it, I just get more steam. I don't know if this analogy is really working. But when I looked at very base search of the research, fair point, I haven't dived very deep into it. I went looking into why I actually do feel better after venting. And what I found from that research that I mentioned is that I actually shouldn't feel better after venting, because it's something that like I explained earlier, it should relive it, make you feel, I don't want to say worse, but the same. But I think what has happened is the research has given me only half the picture, and maybe all it is just talking to someone and being heard and validated and being like, it's okay to feel this way, or what you should be feeling is valid. And that's why I feel better. I'm not actually feeling better for actually venting. It's just the feeling of being heard. And then this is where the confusing bit comes in. What happens when you start venting to a chatbot? I'm not going to answer that today, but I think there's something different here, because venting to a chatbot, according to this research, shouldn't do anything, because they can't necessarily hear you like another person can hear you. So that's where my thought process is at the moment. But I'm not diving into that. I'm Friday. It's tired. Oh my gosh. It's Friday. I'm tired. Academics are weird. And I've realized at this phase of my life, I am weird. Because I looked back on this episode now that I'm filming the outro, and I'm like, just accept that venting was something that made you feel good. You don't have to dive deeper into it. And I think that my curiosity for these things is spreading so much that I need to go and find answers to things, and some things don't need answers. And I think that's the conclusion that I have here, is that doing half-assed research on something to be satisfied with what it is like sometimes you don't have to do that, and I think that that's the lesson that I've learned here today, or this week in general. I think, well, you see it scattered, but this has just been a week in my life. I think I've taken a lot of the human behavior side of things from my life and the certain things that were affecting me on the day, well, actually the day before. So yeah, anyway, maybe I should just live with them and enjoy them for what they are. Anyway, um, it's Friday for me. It's probably not Friday for you, but I'm gonna have a good weekend, and I hope you have a good rest of the weekend, whatever.